Right. Farooq, when we talk about incidents such as what Janjua Saab was referring to, we often say that this was exposed. It's India's reality, and the world has seen it, and that may have been so over the years that there is at least some sort of or a certain level of realization that this is not okay, and what's happening in India, of course, needs some sort of consequence. But do you think that that sort of exposure of India's reality is something that does have an impact again in the way that we see India being run internally as well, in the way that people look at their government, at the different political parties, and what's happening, and whether or not these exposures, which might bring to a certain level some sort of debate in the international community, bring the similar level of concern and debate within India, so much so that they will become any sort of obstacle in the general elections. For example, what happened in Canada, will that ever be a problem for the BJP in the upcoming elections?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the opportunity. I was listening to other guests and Faisal. So I thought that there are many things which have been said, which are established, by the way, already. For example, Faisal has actually spoken about how BJP actually exploits hate and events which might be fake or which actually lead to more hate for winning the election. Just Google my article on BJP's shock and awe doctrine, right? And you will see that I have actually curated the entire career of BJP using all such means. Similarly, Ambassador Saab spoke about apartheid state, and Brigadier Saab was also referring to the same kind of mistreatment of minorities. So, I mean, it is already in the books. For example, M.S. Golwalkar, who was the second head of RSS, he has written a book called We or Our Nation Explained. And in that book, if I'm not mistaken, it is page 80 or 84, somewhere around there, where he says that what Hitler did in Germany is a good example for us, and that if you want to don't want to convert to Hinduism, then you will have to be second-rate citizens, and you will never be given rights. So these things are already established. What actually intrigues me, Sana, is the flatness of Indian mind. How quickly entirety of India, for example, President Obama in his promised land actually has mentioned this, that when it comes to Pakistan, the entirety of India becomes one, and they don't seem to have that kind of depth left, right? The same kind of jingoism. So I keep on asking myself, inquiring what exactly might have actually caused this. First thing that you have to actually look at is the cowardice, of India's opposition parties and the cowardice of India's intellectual class. The way they actually, and I think that again Advani had used a great language for this kind of attitude in his book, but he was referring to Indira Gandhi's emergency. It applies today as well. He said that the press was asked to bend, they chose to crawl. So these people keep on crawling, right? So just look at how Indian opposition went mum when it came to Pulwama, when it came to Article 370, or now when you talk about this Canada-India imbroglio, even there they are also totally lost any kind of volition. Yeah. There are certain good examples. For example, Mamata Banerjee is one shining exception to this rule, because her party is not actively inventing soft Hindutva. Because Congress party has invented this whole thing, they don't have any legs to stand on. But then there is another very interesting thing that you have to look at. India has this intelligence, Hindutva intelligence industrial complex. India's intelligence agencies have been hardened, and they are, by the way, once again being blamed for the assassination of the Sikh gentleman, right? So this intelligence agencies or community was appealed to by Ajit Doval in 2014 at the start of the election, and at that time he pitched that if we are given 10 years, we are going to change the entirety or the fate of the country. So they have been doing this exactly. The problem is that India is going through what I call a hostage situation. The world keeps on tolerating what India does but to its own minorities, its own people, because they think that they will be further harmed and they will have no lever to control whatever is happening on ground if India is so provoked. So they keep on tolerating it, but we saw Donald Trump coming to New Delhi.
Right.
At that time there was bloodshed and there was massacre of Muslims, but that did not ring a bell, right? So right now what is happening is this hostage situation is being expanded to other countries. That if you are going to actually work with India, not only tolerate our abuse of our own people, but also the expatriates who are now your citizens.
Right.
So here is what is wrong with the whole situation, but one more thing, Sana. Elite capture. India has this elite capture because Brahmins or upper caste Hindus are only 5% of the country. Who is the rest? Majority the lower castes. Because most of them live in the rural sides or disadvantaged places, they are never given a voice. So the elite is always worried about this idea that somehow caste will be identified as a marker. Very quickly, Sana, I have waited a lot. Just one sentence. Now what they do is they use Muslims or Sikhs or Christians as the strawman to actually unite the Hindus, so that they can hence the Romeo talk about Romeos, or for that matter love jihad, that there is going to be this incubus who is going to steal your daughters if you don't hate Muslims, and that's why you have to be united as Hindus. So with that kind of situation, it is called Hindu consolidation. For now, I don't see any correction. But the only two good things about the current crisis is, one, because of that, India's focus has shifted to other countries. We saw Budgram operation was cancelled.
Right.
Similarly, their attitude towards Pakistan might improve in coming days because you cannot fight with the entire world simultaneously.